Well, good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 6th of August, and today we are in Daniel chapter 4. We're going to be looking at verses 19 through 27, where Daniel interprets the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had regarding the giant tree that's cut down and so forth. And so I'll begin reading here in verse 19. It says, Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was dismayed for a while, and his thoughts alarmed him. The king answered and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation alarm you. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, may the dream be for those who hate you, and its interpretation for your enemies. The tree you saw, which grew and became strong, so that its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the end of the whole earth, whose leaves were beautiful and its fruit abundant, and in which was food for all, under which the beasts of the field found shade, and in whose branches the birds of the heaven lived. It is you, O king, who have grown and become strong. Your greatness has grown and reaches to heaven, and your dominion to the ends of the earth. And because the king saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, Chop down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field, and let him be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field till 7 periods of time pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king. It is a decree from the Most High, which has come upon my lord the king, that you shall be driven from among men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like an ox, and you shall be wet with the dew of heaven. And 7 periods of time shall pass over you till you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he will. And as it was commanded to leave the stump of the root of the tree, of the roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be confirmed for you from the time that you know that heaven rules. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you. Break off your sins by practicing righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the oppressed, that there may perhaps be a lengthening of your prosperity. So, you recall the first dream that Nebuchadnezzar had in chapter 2 regarded the statue with the head of gold, arms of silver, torso of bronze, legs of iron, so forth. And we know that once he heard that interpretation that he was the head of gold, he made a 90-foot tall statue, all of gold, and required that everyone in his kingdom worship it. You see, he let the vision that God gave him go to his head, and he became prideful. And so God gives him another dream. And the dream is that, yes, your kingdom has grown and filled the earth, and people depend upon you, but you're going to be driven from man for 7 periods of time. It winds up being 7 years. And he goes mad. He loses his sanity. And the purpose of this lesson is that he might realize that the God of heaven is the one who rules, and that it is God, not himself, who should be worshiped. So that's essentially what the dream means. And then reading tomorrow, we'll see how this dream actually comes to fruition, and Nebuchadnezzar is humbled. So what is the lesson for us today? Well, there's a couple things that really stand out, right? First of all, we understand that it is God who exalts kings and puts down kings. It is God who is in charge of ultimately of who rules and who does not. And how does that apply to us? Well, we need to understand, come this election in November, that we may play a part, but ultimately God decides who wins the election. And we have to understand that. And we understand that God has a plan and a purpose for who he puts in charge and the way that nations go. God uses nations like chess pieces on a big board. And we know that all of these nations historically played a role in the life of the nation of Israel. So, first thing we understand is that God is in control. The second lesson that really stands out to me is that God knows how to humble people who are proud and arrogant. Now, this is a pretty drastic lesson that Nebuchadnezzar has to go through. And great, thankfully, the beauty of this lesson is the fact that he gets a second chance. He's humbled, but he gets a chance to be restored. I'm reminded of what the book of James tells us. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. You see, it's much better to humble yourself than to be humbled. And that's really the second lesson here. It's much better to humble yourself than to be humbled. I was just reading an article this morning briefly. I didn't read the whole article, but there was a man. There was a man. I think his last name was Lyles. He won the 100-meter race at the Olympics by 3/1000ths of a second. I mean, literally half a blink. But he came in second in the trials. And the reason he came in second is because he was too busy taunting the man that was next to him. And I just thought, he was so busy taunting in his arrogance that he blew the lead. And I thought, what a sad example that is. It's a sad example. for a man so gifted and so fast to be arrogant like that. I mean, it's one thing to be competitive. It's one thing to, want to win. But you better understand the fact that, a lot of what you have been gifted with is just that. It's a gift. To have the health and the strength to be able to get out of bed without having any sickness or anything that would not allow you to compete like that. It's not because you're some great person. It's just you've been blessed. And Nebuchadnezzar here had to understand that he didn't become king of this great empire all by himself. God had a hand in it. And he needs to learn to recognize God and give God the glory. It's important that we understand that every good and perfect gift comes from above. It falls down from the Father of lights, with whom there's no variableness, neither shadow of turning. King James, Book of James. But basically all that verse means is that every good thing you have in life is a gift from God. And it comes down from the God who doesn't show any partiality. He's just a good God who blesses his people. And not only does he bless his people, he blesses all people in one way, shape, or form. I mean, it rains on the just and the unjust. And so we think about humility. We think about God's sovereignty in the affairs of men. And that's really the gist of this whole passage, is that God is in control and we're not. And everything we have is a gift from God. So how do we apply this to our life? Be humble, be thankful, and be thankful, and give God the glory in all things. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a blessed day. We'll see you again tomorrow.